Okay, this is 5 minutes in Guatemala with Group 6. Guatemala is roughly the size of Tennessee, but is one of the most highly populated countries in Central America with a population of almost 15 million people. Agriculture is essential to Guatemala's economy, contributing to about 13% of its GDP and accounting for 41% of total exports.
The leading agricultural outputs from Guatemala include coffee, sugarcane, bananas, cotton, and hemp. And the leading agricultural exports are coffee at 9.7%, followed by raw sugar, bananas, palm oil, then nutmeg at 2.2%. The top 5 export destinations include the United States of America, El Salvador, Honduras, Mexico, and Costa Rica at 3.8%.
The imports to Guatemala include corn at 1.2%, pure cotton yarn, wheat, nitrogenous fertilizers, soybean meal at 0.77%. And these imports come from the USA at 37%, Mexico, China, El Salvador, and Colombia at 3.6%.
Guatemala is one of the largest markets for U.S. agriculture exports in the Central American region at $937 million in fiscal year 2013. According to 2014 data from the USDA Foreign Agricultural Service, by category, the largest agricultural exports from the United States to Guatemala, from greatest to least, are grains and feeds, oilseeds and products, horticulture products, poultry products, and livestock and meats. Specifically, the United States' largest agricultural commodity exports to Guatemala are soybeans at $220 million, corn at $165 million, wheat at $34 million, broiler meat at $96 million, and cotton at $58 million. Based on 2014 data from the same site, by category, the largest agricultural imports to the United States from Guatemala, from greatest to least, are horticulture products, sugar and tropical products, tobacco and products, planting seeds, and grains and feeds. Specifically, the largest agricultural commodity imports to the United States from Guatemala are fruits and preparations at roughly $1.02 million, coffee at roughly $36,000, sugar at roughly $156,000, rice at roughly $34,000, miscellaneous horticulture products such as cut flowers, essential oils, and wine products at roughly $27,000. An interesting restriction on trade is Guatemala's ban of GE seeds, which are largely marketed in other parts of Latin America, especially Honduras. This has posed an enormous burden for Guatemalan farmers trying to compete with their Honduran neighbors, who have been using the technology for the past 14 years. Ironically, Guatemala is a large importer of GE plant-derived products, but still restricts the growing of GE seeds domestically.
Agriculture is hugely important to Guatemala's economy because over a fourth of the population works in the labor force for agriculture, 30%. And also, agricultural sector accounts for about 13% of Guatemala's GDP.
Guatemala is a poor country, so the staple foods include those that are cheap, filling, and easy to store without the need to refrigerate. For many families, black beans, corn tortillas, and rice are eaten with almost every meal. Small amounts of animal products are also consumed, but the amount depends largely on the income of the family. Frijoles negros volteados, meaning fried black bean paste, is a common spread for tortillas made by simply mashing black beans and heating the paste in a skillet with oil until the puree thickens and the liquid evaporates. Similar to refried beans in the United States or Mexico, this spread can be eaten with warm tortillas, local vegetables, rice, or sour cream.
An average farmer in Guatemala, unfortunately, would likely be struggling. His or her family would probably be large, as the country's birth rate is high and most women have over 3 children. Rural agricultural families are also likely to live in poverty, and if they are of indigenous descent, as up to 40% of Guatemala's total population is, they have a 70% chance of being poor. Ironically, hunger is a growing issue for many farming families as well. According to Oxfam International, one reason why farmers can have trouble feeding themselves is because they are now pressured to grow exports like coffee, sugarcane, and biofuels instead of the corn and beans they have historically subsisted upon. Climate change is also an issue that has had making a steady crop to sell difficult. The year 2009, for example, brought erratic rains and higher temperatures than usual. One farmer, highlighted by Oxfam, lost 90% of his crop. He said, "We hope there will be rain, otherwise we may die." While this may seem like an extreme example of what farmers are up against in Guatemala, their problems should not be underestimated. Josh mentioned earlier that the typical diet of farmers and their families in Guatemala includes corn, black beans, and white rice, etc. Also tortillas. All of these things are pretty easily accessible and are cheap to eat, unlike some other more specialty items like eggs, plantains, etc. Other things to know about farmers and their families in Guatemala is that they are likely to have work animals and tools that are more readily accessible and cheaper than expensive machinery. Another thing is that farmers in Guatemala, it's hard for them to form unions against companies like Dole and Chiquita if they are having problems with workers' rights, etc., because Guatemala is the second most dangerous place for trade unionists behind the country of Colombia. So that's all we have for you today, and here are our references. Thank you.
This was 5 Minutes in Guatemala with Group 6.